So the thing that I always tell students and new graduates is that do not chase after the money at the start. Let me explain. So all the jobs in the radiography world or the healthcare world is a combination of the three options: metropolitan or rural, public or private, hospital or clinic. So say right now I'm working in a metropolitan public hospital. It is very stressful, it's very challenging, but I love it and I'm pretty sure I'm going to work there until the day I retire. And the reason that I can be so certain that this hospital is where I want to be is because as a student radiographer, I've worked in many different places. I've heard people complain about, the salary or the staffing issues. So I can see all the pros and cons working in different workplaces. So in this video, I want to overshare with you what I know so you can make a better choice about what is the best for you instead of choosing a job just because it pays more. So let's talk about metropolitan versus rural. So most of the people want to find a job in the metropolitan area because there are more opportunities, it's closer to home, and is near the city. But when there are more people, there is more competition. In a major public hospital, sometimes you may have to wait several years before you even get trained in CT. Whereas in the rural area, there is less competition, so sometimes it is more likely for you to get trained in a modality, say MRI or ultrasound. And in some rural area, they will pay you a little bit more just to give you an incentive to stay in the regional area. But does that mean if you get job offers from both metropolitan and rural areas, you should just go straight to the rural? There are other things we need to look at. Now, let's talk about private and public. Some people assume that if you work in a private sector, you will get more money. That is not true. When I was a first year qualified radiographer, I had 3 different job offers from 3 different private companies. So they were offering me an hourly rate ranging from $21 to $28. So it really depends on what that company wants to pay you. So sometimes in the private company, you can negotiate for a higher salary if you have the skill set that they want, say MRI or ultrasound. But otherwise, in general, I feel like the public radiographers and the private radiographers, they earn a similar wage. But I'm a bit biased because I work in the public sector. I feel like we get more benefit. So for example, we can get 8 weeks of pay leave a year if we do enough overtime shift or on-call duties. And we also get conference leave, we can get reimbursed for any CPD. So in my own opinion, I feel like I'm making a pretty decent money working in a public hospital. Now let's talk about hospital versus clinic, because I think this is the most important factor you need to think about when you're choosing a job. So the work that you do and the experience that you get in a hospital is very different to what you would get from a clinic. So if you spend most of your clinical placement in clinics, it means that you're going to lose out on a lot of your radiography skill. Say the theater II skill, the mobile fluoroscopy, or angio cath lab. That's pretty much half of the radiography skill. And the other big difference between a hospital and a clinic is the working hours. So a hospital operates 24/7, meaning you're gonna do shift works. So maybe an early morning shift, maybe an afternoon shift, or sometimes even an overnight shift. And you also have to do on-call duty and weekend shift, and you always have to work on a public holiday. Whereas in a clinic, you're most likely to work 9 to 5. You are very unlikely to have any weekend shifts, and there is no on-call duty. So for some people, say with family, they prefer something a bit more stable. So they would like to know that they can always have the night and the weekends off. They would choose a clinic work. But whereas for me, I don't like 9 to 5, but for me that is boring. I really enjoy doing shift work, and I don't mind doing weekend shift because we do get paid double time for that. So when students ask me, hey, what is that one advice you can give us? I would always say, go work in a hospital whenever you can. Even if that hospital is 3 hours away and you need to move there in order to do the placement, do it. Because the time you spend in a hospital is way more beneficial than the time you can spend in a clinic. Because if you spend all your time working in a clinic just because it is closer to your home, you never really get the full experience of what a radiographer can become. Because in a hospital, you will do trauma, emergency cases, and you will get to see all the modalities. So you will get to do the mobile work, theater work, fluoroscopy. Whereas a clinic, you will only get to see X-ray, CT, ultrasound, and maybe MRI. So not all clinic has an MRI scanner, and that's because MRI scanner is very expensive. We're talking about $3 to $6 million, and it's also very dangerous. So the funny thing is that everybody is scared of radiation, but the most dangerous thing in the medical department is the MRI scanner. But the one thing that a lot of students do not know is that it is easy for a hospital radiographer to find a job in a clinic, but it is very difficult for a clinic radiographer to find a job in a hospital because it takes months to train up a radiographer to be confident in doing mobile theater work all by themselves. So a hospital is more likely to hire a new graduate who has spent the last 6 months working in a hospital instead of a radiographer who has spent the last 2 to 3 years working in a clinic. So now let's go back to the start where I said do not chase after the money. So a lot of students are facing two choices now, either to do an unpaid internship in a public hospital or take a paid internship in a private clinic. So I understand that during this whole COVID pandemic, sometimes people face financial burdens, but let's talk about long term. Is the money you're gonna earn from this 6 months of internship really gonna be important in the long term? Or that 6 months unpaid of public hospital experience is gonna benefit you more as a radiographer, and in the future you can earn more because you have that hospital experience? In my personal opinion, I would say that unpaid 6 months of internship in a public hospital is definitely more beneficial to you in the long term, regardless if you want to work in a public hospital or you want to work in a private clinic in the future. Having that 6-month internship experience in a public hospital is going to look amazing on your resume. The hiring team will always prefer to hire somebody who had hospital experience compared to somebody who had none. If you want to know more, just check out this other video.